All right. Hi, folks. So, continuing on our Soundsbite recorder today, we will be, even though our README here says like fixed type errors and warnings, but yesterday, as we concluded, I was planning to improve the way the user is structured on the Airtable side of things, because currently building authorization isn't really possible. So yesterday we did authentication, but to build authorization we would need to sort of abstract out the user. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So right here, uh, if I make it bigger, we are storing the user here itself. One, there is like a lot of repetitions here, which isn't really great. Like as our data grows, the payload would grow as well, right? So it's not the best to keep repeating the user. And then also, like, it's difficult to tell, like, either we have to mutate every sound that has been stored by this user. So that means like query all the sounds and filter out only those sounds created by the specific user, and then uh, basically add a flag on it saying that yes, this sound is approved and this user is approved and all of that, right? So that isn't really scalable as such. So an alternative that I want to explore in this stream today is having a separate field for a user and then link it here, and if that user has certain permissions, like if it's an admin or something like that, they can sort of review other sounds for people as well, right? So that we have a community where people can sort of moderate the sounds that are there. So that's it. Let's open up our application. So let me go here, let me start a tmx session as well, and let me also start the bot. I keep forgetting to source these variables, but yeah, should be fine now. So let's create one more window. Okay, so I think before we get into any of the code, right, like I think we can immediately start exploring this, and I've already done some exploration on my own yesterday. So the way I'm considering this is, like, I'll create one more table here. We'll call it user, right? uh, and as you see here, whenever we are basically storing the whole user object, right? So it has a name, email, and an image, right? So there are just three properties that we have to store, right? So there would be name, email, and image. So let's change this. This would be an single line text, because image url is just a single line text, so we'll call it image. Now something I realized is that even though we have name and email, right? So there's name and then email address. Name isn't the best candidate for a primary key. This first column here, if you see, I think like they say like this is the table's primary field, right? And it cannot be hidden, it cannot be moved, and so on. So name, I don't think, is the best candidate. We should replace it, or I'm thinking of replacing it with email. So I'll call it email, and this will become name, basically. That is how we would want to change the table, and this will become a single line text, and this will be called email, sorry, rather name, because name would again fit in a single line text. So all of this is a single line text. Now one more thing that I want to add here is, we want to create a relation with this table, and while we are at it, I also want to rename this to bytes, right? Or other byte, as we name our tables in a singular form. Let's keep it like that. So every although it doesn't make sense, because like if there's a single user, right, a single user can relate to multiple multiple bytes as well. So that can be a problem, but let's try it out. So I'll say bytes. This would be a link to another record within byte. Okay, it says like allow linking to multiple record. This field will link records in byte table, right? So I'll save it. Field lookup, I think we want to do a name, or let me not do it right now. So we'll skip the lookup part. You see there's a mapping created here called bytes, and if I go into this table, there's a similar user mapping here as well. So let's get rid of this one first of all, so that this can be called user, not just user2, right? So yep, hopefully this didn't get disturbed at all. Okay, so now imagine I create a user here, right? Like let me create my user. So I'll create skipnote@gmail.com and name it so let me fill in just these details, and now if I go here on byte, so I can select a user here. So I'll click on this plus icon, I can select skip note. Right now I can do this, I think, for multiple users or multiple bytes. I'm not sure how the mapping works here. Yeah, it does, like it shows you multiple values, right? So this is what we want. So we already have this. Most of the configuration happens on the Airtable end, so I don't see a lot of value in our case to do this using the code itself. I think like once you have created a table, it's fine. So okay, so now that we have all of this mapping, let's rename or refactor our code to work with this. And I'm quickly thinking what else do we need, right? So we have name, URL created on authorized, and then a user link to it. So the user will just give us I'm not sure like how the querying of this user would work, right? Like if we get a email address and then we'll have to go to this table and query from that. There could be a possibility of this as well. I'm not sure if they allow joins and all. On this side though, like I want to add a like a authorization now, and this would be I'm thinking like rather than just doing like a boolean check where that's like admin or not admin or authorized or not authorized, I was also thinking like maybe there can be multiple levels of administration, but I think like since I don't have a conclusive understanding, or I haven't really thought about it, right? So I think like this is fine for now. So I'll move this over here, right? So let me get rid of this user because I want this to be added when I log in rather than manually adding it. So now let's go back to bytes, and if we pull up fetch all, right? So for fetch all, the only thing I want to update here is rename the store from store, or rather table from store to byte. So that is one change that we want to do. And then if we look at like what consumes fetch all, so fetch all is consumed by pages, right? So I think like we can start there. It's a good place to start from. So this is the front end. Okay, yeah, this is okay. So we start with the fetch function first of all. Okay, so we are querying the user here, like from this table. We have already sort of pulled in the byte table. Now we are sort of pulling the user from the record itself and then passing it forward. And then we are also having this approved. So the approved bit is fine. I think like approved, the part of approved that a byte has to be approved is something we want to keep. So this is all right. Now searching for fetch all now. So no, rather this is just fetch, right? So this is used, fetch is used in index and listener. So let's go into index first. Yeah, so we are getting all the data here. Let's maybe start by looking at what do we get when we are querying for user, right? Like earlier we are getting an object which we were parsing and all. Now we want to look at, like, because we clearly can't like do a JSON parse on it, so we have to validate what this looks like. Currently none of the items have a user as well, so that means that uh, this actually wouldn't give us any values. So thinking about that a little bit more, uh, what if I create a new sound, right? So that will trigger the upload function. So I think like we'll have to start from creation. Yeah, so we are sending over the user, the whole user object, and this goes to the upload API function. So let's go to that, API slash upload TS. And yeah, so here we are doing again, like we'll replace store with byte, but then here we are storing the whole user object, and this is where my concern is, like how do we create this mapping, right? This is confusing. So I think like let's manually create a user and see like what the data we get back, and based on that we can create further mappings manually. So if I add a new user with these two parameters and then use it here, maybe so add a user here, this one should be fine, right? So if we now start another server here, let's take a look at localhost 3000. Okay, so immediately we are getting errors saying that it's not able to pass JSON on line 150. So let's see index and line 150. Okay, so we are parsing JSON, right? So let's not do that. Let me comment these lines out and let's consume it as it was. If I refresh the page over here, yeah, we are getting the sounds. I'm not sure what user data we are getting though, so let's take a look at the data that we are storing when we get it right here. So yeah, you see we get, rather than the user itself, we get this reference. Okay, now this seems like an ID, like similar to the ID here, so it looks like that. So if we can do a get based on ID, then we can probably do that. I'm not sure if we can create data sort of like pass it to a different table in a single query and all of that, but let's see the API. So yeah, okay, so we have bytes table, user table. I think things don't really matter much for them, like if it's a different table altogether. What we really want is yeah, to create a record, right? So if we, oh nice, this gives us an example of you're creating a new create a new byte, right? And all of these values, and then also like if you want to refer a user, you need the ID though. Like this is a bit confusing. What if we do the other way around? Yeah, they assume that we already have that ID rather than anything else. Click here to write the example, click here to show the example. Okay, so user fields. Okay, this is creating multiple users. Okay, multiple users, right? Updating user records is the same, I think. Deleting user records and so on. So again, like if you look at creating records, right, how do I get that ID? Like, does this create return an ID? Hide example. Yeah, typecasting is fine. So this gives us a record, I think, here, get ID, right? Yeah, so we can get a ID here. So from what I can tell, we'll have to do two queries. Like first create a user. Yeah, and wouldn't that create a user every time we do this? That is again another problem I don't want to deal with. I think that there should be something like or rather, let's take a look at it here, right? So like every time a user logs in, so we have a handler for that, right? So we go into authentication, next auth. So yeah, but then this, I'm not sure what this returns back, because this just yeah, we'll have to explore the callback option, but for now I think like let's do it the trivial way, wherein we create a user every time the user basically take the user details, but then we'll also have to do a lookup, like whether the user is already there in the database or not, which doesn't seem the best way to do it. All of this data should be there in the cookies. Like this is the user's ID. So I'm not really sure. So there's no concept of join. So let's take a look at, then considering like I don't want to refactor this again, let's take a look at what are the callback parameter that next auth takes in. I think they have documented here in the example file under pages, and then in the auth file itself. Yeah, I think here maybe am I still live? I think I might be. Yeah, I'm still live. All right, so yeah, let's look at the callback documentation for more details, but I'm thinking like either sign in or session, one of these two might be helpful in our case. Sign in callback, user sign in callback to control if the user is allowed to sign in. Okay, so this might have a case for us as well, a use case for us, but not right now. Redirect callback is called anytime the user is redirected to a callback URL. Example, sign in and sign out. By default, the URL is the same as the site URL. Session is checked. Okay. And then where's that redirect? Okay. So sign in callback is but I can't add anything to the session, right? That is also another problem. And then also I think like I'll have to write a lot of boilerplate code either on sign in right, like on sign in and also on sign out, right? Like add a say like a value to local storage and then remove it, all of that. What does session so there is sign in, there is also a redirect. Redirect doesn't have a user details, so I don't think that is valuable to us. So the other one is session, but then with session, yeah, I think like let's do it with for now let's do it with sign in and sign out, right? So first we have sign in. What's the signature here? We have sign in, which is a async function that takes in user account and profile, right? And then I think we can do like a return promise dot resolve true, while we also do a console.log of this, right? I think this should be fine. And now let's do we need to I think we need to restart our application, so let's restart that. I have it open up here. So once I log in I should see these details about my user, although it's already throwing errors. Okay, I see what it is. It should be a callback function, oh sorry, a arrow function rather. Okay, refresh. We should get back the right data and then we can sign in. Did I not? Okay, it seems like the environment variables are there. So if I click on sign in, it will redirect and so on. But I think like as it comes back. Oh, okay, yeah, we are still running into the issue from yesterday, wherein the callback URL. So let me go to GitHub and quickly revert the callback URL temporarily. I think that is something we can do. So let's go to GitHub. I'm doing it on a different screen so that the secret remains secret. I'm doing it quickly here. So going to settings, going to developer settings, and then auth applications. Going to the byte application here, and over here I'm not sure like whether they allow, like they don't, like they say like a singular callback URL rather than like allowing comma separated value. That would have been nice. Let's see, the font on that screen is too small. Localhost API auth callback. Okay, I think this should be fine. It says updated, so let's go back here. Localhost 3000. Did I add a 3000 to this though? No, I did not. So let's add 3000 as well. Sign in with GitHub. Okay, so you see like we get these details. It says like incorrect client credentials. Okay, yeah, I think like the local values are also incorrect, so let me update that as well. So that would be in the code base, updating the environment file. So I want to update this client secret. Okay. Right. So I think this should be it. Now if I restart the application, before that I source the environment variables and do a npm run dev, go back to localhost 3000 and start from there, so that like nothing is messed up. Okay, yeah, you see like we are getting the user here. We are getting the user, you're also getting the profile, so I think like we can get a lot of details from here as well actually, but that's fine. I don't think we need any of that right now. So I think like at this moment of time we can persist the user to the database, store the details in our local storage. Can we store them on local storage though, like, because that is also confusing, right? Like I am not too sure. So what do we resolve, right? We just resolve with the true or false, so that's the problem here as well. We don't have an opportunity as such to update the value. Let's also take a look at the session, like but the problem with session is like, even with sign in, I think like the way we are doing it is like we are creating a user every time the user logs in. So in case the user is logged in, we don't create a user, right? So okay, let's take a look at session. Like I want to see like if we can modify the user details that we get from it. If we do, then if we can, I mean, because like it resolves a session here, right? So it seems like we can send a updated session here. So we get a session and a user. We take this value over here, resolve the session, and then also log user here. Yep, so that should be it. I'm not sure if it did an update, but let me do that manually. Yeah, so sign out. So this is the session, right? This is what the session is resolving to every time, and the other one is the user, I think. So one is session, one is user. So, and if, why is it resolving? Okay, it's not resolving anymore. Like this was earlier before I was logged in. Yeah, so what if I do like session dot I want to add like user id is equal to something like this, right? So we now check the log messages here. If I refresh, nothing happens because we are not hitting that endpoint at all. But let me sign in and then let's check. Okay, yeah, it doesn't seem like it updated it. So that's that you don't see any user id here. Let's print out let's see like if it's really an object name, right? From here, Alright, so if we go back here, refresh, yeah, name we get undefined. So it's, I'm not really sure like what this is pulling or what this session object is actually. Yeah, it's a bit confusing now. So let's do this instead. How about we do JSON session. I think it's null for some reason. Refreshing the page. So yeah, this is what it's giving us. Like it has a user object within it, and then okay, so we have a okay. I think we are adding the appropriate details here. So this adding a user ID seems fine to me. The way we can validate this is right. So if I go to say header, for example, in the header we are taking in the session, right? So the complete object. So what I can probably do is I can simply, like, next to the name I can add a pipe. Okay, not that. Add a pipe and say session dot user ID. Yeah, see, it's printing that out as well. So I think like this is how we can update the session. We don't need the, where was this, here, right? So we don't need the sign in. We can use the session, although it said, yeah, we do need the session to sort of update the values that are passed to the front end. So that is kind of mandatory for us. There's also verify request. If set new user will be redirected to first sign in, here on first sign in. And how do we validate if this is a new sign in? Yeah, this would be interesting, right? Like, I'm not sure. I don't think they document it here. Pages configuration. Oh, okay. You can define custom page overrides to override the built-in pages. Oh, okay. But yeah, still, like, I'm not sure how this works. Okay. So sign in wouldn't work, redirect wouldn't work, session would certainly work, and this is what we are using. Let's go back here and go through the documentation once more. Maybe we can find something more interesting there. So if we go to session callback, when using database sessions, a user object is passed as an argument. When using jot to open a session, for the session the jot payload is provided instead. Okay, that's fine. I'm just wondering, like, what is the best place to create the user, but I think like this is fine for now. So let's do that. Let's delete this bit. So in this place, what we want to do is, based on the user details here, or can actually grab them from the session itself, taking all of those details, right? Like what we want to do is we want to create a new user in Airtable, and then if that user, once the user is created, we just take the ID and then add it to the session, right? And we also want one more situation or a condition where we check like if the user exists or not. So let me see, like if we have an API, like whether they have a upsert option, whether you just need to do lookups only. So Airtable, is there upserts available? Yeah, there's no upsert reference at all. Let's take a look at their GitHub. I think, like, rather than just searching for it. Oh, okay. So what do we want to look at? We want to look at this Airtable.js, and let me search for upsert. No. Yeah. Find is returning any record by ID regardless of past table. Yeah. Okay, I can't find anything that is related to what we need. API to get field column type. Okay, yeah, that is not related to our needs. I think, yeah, let me not spend too much time thinking too much about it. Let's just work with what we have, and then later we can refactor it. So we know that we can query the database user table, and in there find anything which meets our certain criteria, right? So we can do, yeah, sadly we can't do this, like retrieve existing by table using the find method. Any empty field example is in the record will not be returned. What does that mean? Okay, I see, like, what it means. The sad thing is that it just takes in this value which we don't really know what it is, right? And it doesn't even show up here. So I'm not sure if there is a way to show it, but yeah, it doesn't have anything right here, like, right. Hide field, yeah, there's no hidden fields as such. So yeah, going back to the documentation, yeah. So retrieve a record. To retrieve a record in user table, use the find method. Okay, let's see their documentation. So if I go to upload, we are calling this on base, right? Base, and then also this is our base, and then on base we are calling create, right? So instead, what if I do base byte, whatever it is, and then call wait in front of it, and then I do okay, this is do a find. And what does this take? So it takes in an ID which is string. Let's see if it has some documentation as well. It doesn't. Okay, so how about we create the same user twice and let's see what happens. Can we add conditions for making sure this field is unique? Okay, so let me add one more item with the similar details. Shift enter. Yeah, I can add it. So this is the problem, right? Because this is not really the there's no criteria to make it unique. Let's see, like, if we can do something. Yeah, not really here, at least. Is there anything else that Airtable allows us to do? Yeah, I don't think so. So that means yeah, it means what it means, right? Like we have to find everything basically, which is all right. I think that is something we can deal with. What has changed here in this file? Okay, yeah, this is fine. So let me pull in the necessary details. So we need Airtable. Okay, we can do a split in that case. This will all happen in this file. Let's make this bigger. Where is that thing that I can drag? Okay, never mind. I just need to copy a few things, so I can quickly do that. So I need Airtable. You also need some keys, I think. So these keys, and then also I need to instantiate a new Airtable instance. So paste this over here. Oh, didn't mean to close it, but okay. So besides this, what we need is just a reference to this, and I want to open the auth file. Yep. And yeah, let's put the code here for now. So here what we are doing is we want to create, instead of a byte, we want to create a user, and the name would be user.name. Yep. This is, what are the other fields that we have? Image, user.image, and then authorization we can leave blank, so I won't fill, like add an entry for that. And yeah, obviously we need the email as well. So this would actually be email, and user.email should be fine, right? This will create a user, but I think what we should do is we should now search for a for the user by email address. If we find one, that's fine. We send back its data, and that is it, right? So we need the fetch all here. With fetch all, we just query the ID and the email address, filter those, and yeah, send it back. This is why from this we realize that this is not the best possible solution for doing, basically doing like Airtable isn't best for databases, right? Like, it can do certain things but not everything. I'm just checking like if my stream is working fine or what. Okay, so let's bring in fetch. Yeah, autocomplete doesn't want to work. So if I go here, I import something from something, right? So that something would be, go up a level. Do we want fetch all? Yeah, we do want fetch all. So if I go one more level up and maybe one more, we have query and we have fetch all in there, right? So from this I can import fetch all. So what fetch all gives us is basically like it takes in, okay, I think we can update this by saying like table would be by default bytes, right? So now this is configurable a little bit. We'll use call a table here, and then it still can take parameters. That's fine. Yeah, we did fetch all. So next thing would be to await fetch all and then pass it our specific table, which is user, right? This gives us records, right? So we'll save it as records. Now we have all the records, right? So records will, does it know what it's returning? Yeah. What have we done in the other cases? I can't recall, so let's take a quick look. We did it in the fetch function, so we can take a look there. Yeah, we just map over it, so that's fine. We do a map over it. We take each record, and then from this, or should we do a reduce? No, I think like this is fine. So we return from, while mapping, right, like we return r.id. This would be our id field, and then we also will return the email, which would be r.fields, and then from that we'll query email, like so. This will return all our records, and then also, like I'm thinking, like why loop over it twice? Why not just do a filter, right? Or maybe just a find as well. Or not, yeah, even a for each as well. I think let's do that. Do a find instead. So if r.fields email is equal to user.email, right? Something, I'm not sure about the user right now, like if it returns the correct value, but let's see. So, or let's be very sure and do like a session.user.email, because we know like there's a user object on the session, so that should be fine. And if it is if this condition meets, then we return something here, right? Otherwise we don't. So this will give us the found user, right? Or rather db user. So db user is fine, right? Like if we have db user, then we can do certain things. Otherwise what we'll do is instead we'll do if not db user, we do something like this, right? So now I don't see a lot of value even in doing this find. We can probably do a for each, and then I'll get to what I mean, right? Like we have a let here which says user id, right? So by default it is nothing, undefined, and then in case we find it, what all we do is we say like all we do is we set user id is equal to r dot id, right? That should be it. But then I'm not sure like if we, how do we break out of for each? I can't remember, right? So if we have, imagine like if you have an array of 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So and then if I do a for each on this, I take I, if I take I as a parameter, and then, or as I iterate rather, and then do a console dot log I, and then if I check for a condition like if I is equal to 4, then I return, right? So does it print 5 6? It does. So now how do we exit from for each? I remember doing something, but then like it's not really straightforward, so I'm not sure what the alternative would be. Just to use this thing, find. I think find does sort of leave immediately. Yeah, this is not the best way to do it, like wrapping it in this thing. It says that some can do it, like yeah, I don't see like some being the best option as well. So let's try find here. I did even though find returns something, I think like it would exit early. I might be wrong though. So if I do a find, no, doesn't help. No. So what do they suggest? Yeah, for off loop. I think that is good enough as well. So I think this can be iterated over. So what if I do for let r of what is this, records? In that case, if r dot fields email is equal to user dots, or rather session dot user dot email, in that case set user id to this, and then to r dot id, and then return. Don't go beyond this. So let's get rid of it. Let me also, I think this should be fine, but to validate, let's also print out console.log r.id. I think this should be fine. Like if it prints too many, although like this doesn't really help. Like imagine the user record is the last one, so it will still print all of them. Let's get rid of this. I think it should work, although you have to do a break instead. So that's fine. Why is this complaining here? Is declare, but it's not, its value is not red. It is red here, right? And then we can set this here. Session.user id is this value. Yeah, it's happy now. So right here we are checking if the record exists or not, right? Like if it doesn't, we'll create a, if we, so here let me start over, right? Like so first we are declaring this user id variable, right? And checking when going through all the records in the table here, right? So like if we go into the user table and check like if there's an email address with the email address that the user logged in with, so if they are the same, then we find the id of the record and then return it, right? Like when I say return, like we assign it to the user id, and if that condition is true, this code won't run at all and we won't create a new user. And in case we say like we don't find johndoe@gmail.com, what we this condition would be false, and we negate it to make it true, and then we create a user with all those details. So once we have that user, right, so the next step would be, so we are earlier looking at this, so creating a record. So once you create a record, right, you get a record from there, and then on that record you call get id. So create is a promise based API. It gives us back, you see, it will give us back a record, right, a single record. So what we can do is we can say like const record here, right, and then from this record we can get this ID, right? So, and we can assign this to user ID. So this is how it would work. In case we find a user in that database table, we won't create it. We will just take its user ID and then add it to the session. In case it doesn't exist, we'll create that user and then add it to the session again. So let's see if this works. All of this works. Let me restart the server once. There are some jot related errors, something we'll have to look into later on, but yeah, it's fine. Okay, lot of frame drop today as well, hopefully not too much. So yeah, if now that we have sort of added values to our session, let me go ahead and delete this user, so that in an ideal scenario what should happen is it should query the users, all the users in this table, which is basically nobody, and then because it doesn't find anything, it should create the user and then add it to the session as well. So refreshing the site, sign in with GitHub. So let's go to the server logs. Yeah, something failed here, right? So it says like unknown field name created on, so something we are doing incorrectly here. Do we have a created on here? We do have a created on here, so that should be fine. Let's take a look. Did not create the user, right? So let's add some let's add some logs here. This would be first, and this would, here we would print user ID. Alright, I think we should also wrap this in a try catch to make it simpler, but yeah, let's come back to that after trying this. There are too many logs already here. I think like we can get rid of some of them. It's difficult to tell like what's actually happening. Oh, I think this would be due to, yeah, debug true, right? Let's make it false, because this data isn't really helping us out. Yeah, now that we are trying this out, let's do this, right? So let's take all of this, right from the very start up till surround this in a try catch, catch here. Yeah, let's see now. Yeah, again getting this unknown field, so we'll have to review that as well, like why it has this unknown field, although it did logged in, and I'm not sure if it created the user at all. So yeah, it did not, so that is not good. Okay, well, let me do this. Let me refresh the page. Yeah, this error wasn't there earlier, so let's take a look at. This is just there on upload, on fetch as well, and on fetch all. Okay, yeah, I see. Oh, okay. Okay, so I think like it's basically pulling in the users because we are using fetch all, right? So that might be the reason. So let's add a create it on and then make it a date, right? Because this was a prerequisite for pulling in the data, so that might be the reason. So starting the server, signing out first. I'm not sure if it did that, but let's see whether I'm still logged in or not. Okay, so first undefined creating user. Okay, it's creating the user. So yeah, I did it twice. Okay, not what we wanted, but it did something, so that's good. And I'm not sure how this ended up happening, like where the first condition didn't work. So yeah, I see like first is again failing. So I'm guessing like there would be one more. No, nothing actually. Yeah, it's signed out now for some reason. So let's see. So I try to sign in. Okay, I immediately get the user, and I can see it here as well. So this is good. Let's sign out. Let's now delete these users to validate that it works consistently. So if I sign in with GitHub, so it doesn't find the user. That's fine. The first time it creates that user and sends it back. Okay, so we have our user here as well, right? This the second time it's called, I think it's triggered on the front end maybe. Yeah, you see like it does this every so often. So okay, actually like if you realize that this is not the best thing because like it's querying the DB very often. So can we prevent that somehow? We'll have to take a look, but then this is working as expected. So yeah, the user was created. Let's file in all their details. I go over here and go to the auth. I think the user.image is not the right property. We can take a look at it in header, like what's the exact value we were pulling in. It is user.image. So why doesn't it work here? Weird. So here, okay, we have deleted all those users. How about we just log the session? Oh, okay, yeah, I think this should come from the, let's do this. User should be replaced with session, not user. Did I? Hopefully I didn't replace everything. Yeah, it should be fine, I think. Now do I npm run dev. So considering all of this, like the way it's sort of polling it every often, I'm not really sure whether this is the best place to do it. creating the user and all is my concern now. So I get the user, but then like it keeps querying, right? So that's the problem. Unless like, yeah, I don't think that would work. Like the function, this is just a function, so it will get called again and again. Okay. That said, I think like let's build the functionality out first, and then we'll come back to this optimization. So now are we storing the image? We are not, because the user is already there. So let's delete it. Let's go back here, let's log out, let's sign in back, and then check like if it, okay, it did add it here for some reason. Somehow I am very confused. Let me sign out and see like if sign out really works. So I'm signed out. If I refresh again, it shouldn't sign me back in automatically. And let me delete this user here as well, right? So there's no user. Let's go to the logs. It should say like it will create a new user. Sign in with GitHub. Okay, it's saying like it's creating a user, so that's good. Then yeah, we get the user. I think are we getting the image as well? Yeah, we are getting the image as well. So this is all nice. This problem is still there, which we'll address in a bit, or try to address in a bit, because like I'm not sure like why this is called every so often. Okay, we can take a look at the deployed application, like whether there's such a polling happening as well. Yeah, I think it does that. We already see like so many messages here. Not sure why it's not pulling in any recording at all, but that's something for later, I guess. Let me keep it open for a second and see like if there are more requests happening. Yeah, already one more here. Okay, so that is, now that we have created this user, right? Where is our table? Don't need any of this now. This has just happened twice, so that is all right. This has also happened for a limited time, not too many times. But anyways, we have the user here. What else did we want to do? Yeah, so we were building a relation here, right? So now that we have this detail, whenever we create a recording, we add this user to that. Yeah, that is what we want to do, right? So going back to our code base, so in our upload, the function here, rather than sending the user object, which is coming from, where is this coming from? Yeah, we are taking it in here, right? So rather than taking this value, what we'll do is, let me go back to where it was defined from. So this is, yeah, so we will pass it the user ID instead, right? This is the only change we need to make, I think. Although I want to see what we are doing on the upload TS side as well. Here we are taking the user and stringifying it, right? So we don't want to do that. We just want to take the user and that's it. It's already a string. I think this should be sufficient, hopefully. Let's see, no more requests, so I think it might be all right. So if I record something, this is to test the user by table. something like this. I go to the networks tab, click upload, see what the data is being sent. Like, the upload immediately fails. Why? With the response saying invalid column for message. Okay, which is okay. Let's take a look at the API. I think we had something there that showed exactly this. So if we go to bytes table, we want to add a user there, right? So we do JavaScript. Where is that relation between the two tables? How about we look at it the other way around? Include a single record, right? This image is fine. Earlier it was showing. Now it isn't. Typecasting doesn't help. So approval created on, where did that go? That example where we had this is errors, fields, list records, list retrieve records, not what we want to do. Update records. Yeah, we still have a relation here, right? Like, I'm guessing like it still has a same relation that it had earlier. So if we go here, yeah, it does continue to have a relation. Let's add it to one of the table. Maybe the API will show data based on that. I think like it, because it like sort of checks what kind of data we have in our tables. Maybe this will help sort of. Yeah, okay, so you give it a capital user and then you pass it an array of users. So we'll say like surround this in an, okay, why do I keep doing that? Surround it in an array when you are creating the user or the recording rather. So coming over here, clearing the console, user table should have called user byte, but okay. So now we are doing some parsing on the front end, which is fine, which some of it we had already removed but not all of it. Yeah, this is something we'll have to figure out on now. Like, we have to fetch data accordingly as well, but okay. So where are we printing out the user? Right, in bytes. So we are printing out the user. I think we can comment this out for a bit and say byte.user. What's wrong here? Did I close too many things? Expression expected. What if I remove this? How come this is fine? Okay, I see. How do we do JSX comments? I don't recall. JSX comments. No, this doesn't work. This. Okay, so just, yeah. For some reason I remember doing this. Yeah, but this works. Yeah, okay. I think this should be fine, and then I can sort of do a byte.user here, right? So it should print out the user ID at least. Yeah, it does for this one, because we specifically did store it here, and it's matching with this one as well. Okay, now if we look at the table as well, so let's make it bigger. So user table is something we created, so let's remove this one because this was manually created. Let's click here. If I go to user, I should see like a mapping there, right? User table. So that is fine, that is done. Okay, so the mapping is done. Now the other thing is that like when we fetch the data, we also have to fetch more data, right? Like this is getting out of hand quickly, but okay, let's see. When we do a fetch all, yeah, we can't really fetch the user here, like we have to fetch the user separately, so that means one more query. Not really liking that, the fact that we have to do all of this. I think the fact that we shifted from using Airtable as NoSQL to SQL is not really working out, because it doesn't provide all the primitives, all the functionality that SQL databases usually have. So I think I might have to revert back to a NoSQL based solution, like rather like sort of treating it as like NoSQL, unless I find a way to get around this. So let's see. So now I want to list records. Yeah, there's no such thing here where I can sort of pull in further details from this this user, right? So links to another record, array of record IDs, it clearly says that, right? So this is the problem. What is open base? It's just a table. Okay, link another record. What is the term for this, for these linked things? Link to another record. Okay, so if we Airtable Js, let's see like in their GitHub repo, like if they have any references to this. Okay, hold on, give me a second. Okay, so quickly taking a look at this one. So we want to take a look at link to another, or rather we can say like query another record. If we can sort of like, is there an option to query a linked record? Currently updating record, fetching record, and updating linked record requires a table ID. If yeah, this might be actually helpful. Yeah, this is also what we want to do. Okay, let's see. Yeah, nothing here, so that's sad. This is either a feature request or documentation improvements and can't clear. So yeah, It's unclear how. So there is a select there's a formula for select as well. I think, like, yeah, this could be interesting, like where we use just formulas, but then these formulas are just for filtering. Okay, so this is primarily around fetching data, not what we want. In case there are many to many implement relationships, is it possible to drag and drop related items in order to change the order? Okay, yeah, I don't think I can find anything here. What I would like to do instead is, rather than just continue on the stream, spend some time thinking about it, because as of now, even though our application is doing a bunch of things, I feel like it's running these queries very often, which is not what we want. And then also the way we are sort of like having to write too many queries, I'm not really happy with that either. So I think, like, we will end our session here, the stream here, and then I will sort of review this a little bit more before I can sort of continue the implementation. So that is something I'll look into as an action item for the next stream. So yeah, I think with that we can end up here. So thank you everyone. Bye bye.